A man drives his wife and 2 kids off a cliff. They survive. He confesses. But instead of going to prison, he gets to walk free. No jury trial, no conviction, no criminal record. This is just absurd. Let's dive in. This is Dr. Dharmesh Patel, a radiologist from California who drove his wife and 2 young kids off a cliff in January of 2023. Miraculously, everyone survived the horrific crash.
We were actually very shocked when we found survivable victims in the vehicle. So that actually was a hopeful moment for us.
Patel was initially charged with attempted murder and child abuse and was facing life in prison. But now he gets to stay at home with his parents and, after 2 years, get all charges wiped clean. Legally, it's as if he did nothing wrong. Yeah. And on top of that, his wife, the mother of the 2 young victims, and the victim herself, is still standing by him. This case isn't just a bizarre anomaly. It's a reflection of something bigger happening in the justice system, a shift where accountability is starting to feel more like an option instead of a requirement. Today, we are going to explore how we got here, what this means for the future, and why you should probably be paying very close attention. Buckle up. Let's start with the actual crash. January 2023, Devil's Slide, a notoriously dangerous stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway. Patel is driving along with his wife and 2 kids, aged 4 and 7. According to witnesses, he makes a U-turn, floors it, turns right, straight off the cliff, 250 feet down, equivalent to falling off a 16-story building. Experts believe the car flips multiple times, lands upright, and somehow everyone survives. Initially, authorities believed it to be a tragic accident. Rescuers were amazed to find survivors. They initially went down for an extraction. From their experience, no one has survived such a tragedy. Patel himself blamed the accident on his Tesla, claiming it was having problems. He explained that he pulled to the side to check on his tires. But upon further investigation, this accident was not an accident at all. Witnesses say there were no signs of braking. His wife, a school teacher, reportedly screamed, "He tried to kill us! He tried to kill us! He tried to kill us!" at first responders multiple times. Then there's Patel himself, who according to court documents, believed his family was being trafficked by someone who, by the way, had been deceased for years at this point. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. According to court testimony, he also had delusions about the fentanyl crisis, the war in Ukraine, believed the mailman was out to get him, and was walking around with a knife. He genuinely thought he was saving his family by ending them. He truly believed they were better off dead. Psychologists call people like Patel family annihilators, a term for individuals, usually men, who attempt to end their entire family. The motivations vary, but often these cases involve a mix of control, despair, or delusional beliefs. Nobody will argue that familicide is horrific. So why is Patel being treated like a victim instead of a criminal? At the hearing for his mental health diversion, Patel's defense team claimed that he was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, while experts for the prosecution countered that he had schizoaffective disorder. These are 2 very different conditions. Major depressive disorder is primarily a mood disorder characterized by persistent sadness, hopelessness, and sometimes thoughts of self-elimination. While severe cases can lead to impaired thinking, it doesn't typically involve losing touch with reality. Schizoaffective disorder, on the other hand, is much more severe. It combines symptoms of schizophrenia, such as hallucinations, paranoia, and delusions, with mood disturbances like depression or mania. People with this disorder often struggle to distinguish reality from their delusions. The conflicting diagnosis became a focal point in determining whether he was a good candidate for mental health diversion. These 2 conditions have 2 very different treatment plans. 2 different diagnoses, both leading to the same outcome: eligibility for mental health diversion. This raises serious questions. Was Patel suffering from a severe, long-standing disorder that had been undetected for years? Or did this diagnosis emerge after the fact, conveniently positioning him for leniency? And if the latter, how do we know the system isn't being manipulated? Now, let's be clear, mental illness is real, and in severe cases, it can lead to dangerous situations. But here's where it gets interesting. Patel had no prior history of psychotic episodes, no documented mental illness, no previous hospitalizations. His diagnosis only came after the crash, when it became the key to keeping him out of prison. And yet, when it came time to face justice, the courts decided he was eligible for mental health diversion. If you are not familiar, this is a legal option that lets certain defendants avoid prison if they have a qualifying mental illness. You get outpatient treatment instead of a sentence. And if you complete the program, which runs for a maximum of only 2 years for felonies, your record is wiped clean. Legally, it's as if nothing ever happened. In theory, this should be a better alternative for some. The idea that people struggling with mental illness get the help they need instead of being thrown into a prison system that often makes things worse. But in practice, cases like Patel raise serious questions about whether this system is actually working or if it's just a loophole ripe for exploitation. It was meant for non-violent offenses, think vandalism or shoplifting, but somehow Patel, who tried to take out his entire family, qualified. If Patel had succeeded in what he intended to do, would this still be a debate? Now, let's take a look at what qualifies. Here's a long list of mental disorders that would make someone eligible for mental health diversion. Anxiety, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, PTSD, and erectile disorders. And here's a list of crimes that are exempt, meaning if you commit this, you don't get to use diversion. Notice what's missing? Attempted murder. So, since Patel didn't technically kill anyone, not for lack of trying mind you, that was enough to qualify him. Oh, and under revised laws, defendants don't even have to prove that their mental illness was a significant factor in committing their crime. Just having a qualifying diagnosis whenever is enough. So, even if Patel's delusions were not the primary cause of the attack, it seems he would have still gotten a free pass. Anyway, what does this program actually involve? Is he under constant surveillance? Is he getting intensive treatment? Not exactly. From what we know, he's got an ankle monitor, drug tests, doctor visits, court check-ins, and he gets to live with his parents. That's it. And when those 2 years are up, he gets his charges dropped and can go back to living life like nothing happened. He is under no obligation to continue treatment or medication. He can even go back to practicing medicine, and he can even legally own and purchase a weapon. Meanwhile, people are serving years for non-violent crimes. San Mateo County District Attorney Steve Wagstaff, who fought against Patel getting into the diversion program, called it a complete misuse of the law.
I'm more than happy to take that gamble when you're dealing with low-level type of offenses. We don't think for a crime like attempted murder that diversion out of the system, meaning no accountability, no punishment, should exist.
The Medical Board of California even called Patel a danger to the public and successfully suspended his license for the duration of his case and diversion program. But apparently, none of that matters, because the system was designed to give people like him a second chance, whether or not it's justified. This is Fernando Jimenez, who got put into mental health diversion after breaking his neighbor's orbital socket. Yikes. Since she was not fatally wounded and survived, he escaped prison time. Guess what? He's now facing new murder charges for allegedly shooting a man in the head while he was on diversion. A homeless man in Santa Monica, California, who assaulted another individual by crushing their skull, has been granted a diversion program instead of a prison sentence. So, let's get this straight. A man violently attacks someone, crushes their skull, and instead of facing real consequences, he's handed a rehabilitation program. Not jail, not prison, just therapy and a fresh start. This wasn't some minor accident. It was a brutal, life-altering attack. At some point, we have to ask, where do we draw the line? Justice is supposed to protect people, not give dangerous offenders a second chance at making the same mistake or worse. If something this extreme isn't enough for real punishment, what is? Pro-diversion activists often point to the decrease in the number of people entering the criminal system as a success. But let's be real, when more and more offenders are placed in diversion programs regardless of whether it's truly justified, of course the numbers will go down. That does not necessarily mean justice is being served. It just means the bar for accountability keeps getting lower. Mental health diversion is not inherently bad. In fact, it has the potential to change lives. But when violent offenders slip through the cracks, when the state refuses to provide transparency, and when taxpayers are left funding programs with unknown success rates, we have to ask, are we fixing the system or just making it worse? Because right now, it feels like we are gambling with public safety, and when the system gets it wrong, the consequences can be devastating. That brings us back to Dharmesh Patel, but we cannot talk about him without talking about his wife, Neha Patel, because her stance on this case is complicated. He said he was going to drive off the cliff. He purposely drove off. That's what she told investigators, but months later, her position completely changed. She stood by him in court, telling the judge she wanted him home, that she missed her husband, her best friend. She even refused to cooperate with prosecutors. There are many theories as to why Neha Patel is supporting her husband. Some believe this is a case of domestic violence and trauma bonding, where victims struggle to separate from their abuser. Others speculate that cultural pressures may be influencing her decision. But regardless of why, one fact remains. This case stopped being just a domestic issue the moment Dharmesh Patel made that decision. Not only did he betray his entire family, he put the lives of first responders and everyone involved in the rescue effort at risk. Once I tuck my children into bed at night, I'm reminded of my own solitude. I really miss my best friend. I really miss my partner in life. That's what Neha Patel told the court. But this isn't just about her feelings anymore. Deputy District Attorney Dominic Davis pointed out that his ability to mask his symptoms makes him exponentially more dangerous, raising serious questions about his release. Let's not forget, Patel was also charged with child abuse, a charge that, thanks to this diversion deal, he essentially escaped. This case is not just about Dharmesh Patel, it's about the dangerous precedent it sets. If someone can commit a crime this extreme and avoid prison by claiming mental illness after the fact, what's stopping others from doing the same? Mental health matters. No one disputes that. But does this sound like justice? This is not just a legal loophole, it's an open invitation for violent offenders to exploit the system. Meanwhile, these programs cost nearly as much as prison, except that offenders remain free in society. So, take a hard look at this case. Look at what he did. What does his freedom say about our justice system? At what point do we stop prioritizing compassion for offenders over safety for victims? At the end of the day, this case leaves us with more questions than answers. A man intentionally drives his family off a cliff. Miraculously, they survive. But instead of facing prison, he's granted diversion. His wife, one of his victims, stands by his side. And soon, their children will be living under the same roof as the men who tried to take their lives. So, what do you think? Should Dharmesh Patel have been granted mental health diversion, or should he have faced the full weight of the law? Let's continue this conversation in the comments. Do consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. It helps bring more attention to cases like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.